Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lounge. Today's episode is another haul video, but there's some cool ones in here. It's mostly going to be DC dominated, but there's at least a couple Marvel issues in here and one lone Image. And if you've been watching this channel, you should know already which Image title that is. It's usually a brand new issue of a long time series. So without further ado, I'll see you all after this. So as you can tell, this is the entire stack. So some of this had began to build up from the middle of January and obviously in through February here. So before Valentine's Day, let me get into doing at least showing off these comics before I even file any of these away, and so I can even start continuing with replacing the bags and boards, whatever, on some of these titles. So, since I mentioned, and this is always the theme when it comes to these haul videos, if there's at least something that's brand new that comes in the mail, that's of a new release, that's usually the one that I start off with. So, without further ado, let's start that one. It is, of course, Spawn 372. Of course, the main cover from Brett Booth. He did a cover, I think, that was like a main cover, I think, for like, was it like 366, one of those. And obviously it just looked too much similar to the other cover that he had did. And that was like the B cover. And so I kind of normally did. So this would be my second Brett Booth Spawn cover, where again, he is the main artist on the title. Had been, at this point, he is one of the longest running. He could actually very well, for me, give a run for Greg Capullo, who had a long run on Spawn and really built his reputation and his the overall status of him on this title. I mean, before, like Batman and all of that. So here you go, Spawn 372. This definitely took a while to come out. Originally, it was said to come out. Was it like January 28th? But with the delays, it got delayed to February. So, see, as you can tell, January, but it didn't come until like February 4th. So, that's just, and then again, that is so typical when it comes to Image titles, especially Spawn. Obviously, for a long time, there was delays in release dates or published dates, whatever, for Spawn. Alright, so let's get to the ones I've been picking up again, all at the shop here in Susanville, the Highway to the Gaming Zone. This one I got during they did a special sale recently, like a buy one, get one free sort of deal, and this time I felt comfortable grabbing this one. I've been trying to grab at least here and there, if I find them for a good price, the Bronze Age Ghost Rider stuff. We're talking about the Johnny Blaze, not the Western one. We're talking about the Johnny Blaze. And I was able, so it's like I'm willing to pay $10 for a comic as long as I get something extra. I try to keep it under budget, but this one may not be in the super greatest shape, but I'll take it. I guess for $10, I guess it's reasonable. But again, it's number 17, which has again Ghost Rider and Damien Hellstrom, again a Son of Satan. Obviously a cool Rich Buckler cover art, and this is during Tony Isabella, or was it Jenny Blake Isabella these days. So there you go, Ghost Rider number 17. So there you go, very cool. Again, it's not super great. There's obviously some issues. I don't know if you can see most of it. So yeah, there's definitely some issues here and there. But either way, for even the condition at this, 10 isn't super terrible. Though it could have been $5. You never know. Sometimes some shops do they tend to, but still, even at any sort of good condition, I think 10 is going to be the cheapest I'm going to find for a Bronze Age era Ghost Rider book. It's going to be the cheapest I'm going to find, even in this condition. That's the cheapest I'm going to find. Everyone is probably selling this around 20 to even $30. I've noticed, maybe 15 at the lowest. 10, that's definitely as low. I'm starting to see some of this, so I'll find it. Even in any sort of condition, it's not a bad price. So I got that. And the thing on that was what I got for free was actually a DC book, but I'll get to that when I get to all the DC stuff. The second and last Marvel book I'm going to show you, and this is just recently, I just picked this one up because I had just gotten back anyways from doing a run to the shop. But I've been trying to pick here and there, going back and forth. Do I pick them? Do I not pick them up? But you know what? For $2, and even in the condition, you know what? I'll take it. But it's Marvel Tales 107, which is actually a direct edition, a very early direct edition. And this would be a reprint of 130. So this would be the first appearance, of Spider-Man's Spider-Mobile. But it would be the second overall appearance for that character, the Jackal, who first appears in 129. If you know what that issue is, bingo. Because that's probably the most easy first appearance title you'll ever think of when it comes to Amazing Spider-Man. And there's been some rumors going around that the Jackal's going to actually be put in live action in the Spider-Man Brand New Day film. So I don't know how true that rumor is, but that's a possible rumor going around because they're talking about throwing a whole bunch of other different villains, kind of cram them into a film. But that'd be interesting. And this would be the first cover appearance for Jackal. But again, this is the Marvel Tales reprint, which is the first reprint for 130. And given how much 130 kind of is going for these days anyways, I'm seeing around 20 to maybe $30 at least. $10 for a low grade. So this is more probably at least a decent mid or higher mid, lower grade, whatever, where it's at least everything's intact. $2. $2 right there. Yeah, that's an easy one. And fascinating one. Fascinating. This is also would have been the overall fourth appearance for Hammerhead. There you go. That's pretty cool. Alright, finally let's get into some DC, and we're going to hit off with a major one. We're going to hit up with a major DC character. Because this shop finally got in some cool Bronze Age. Well, at least this one's a Bronze Age one. And it was probably the most reasonable of the ones that I could get. And it's pretty cool, and it's a cool Mike Grell cover anyways. But it's Batman 287 in a pretty decent mid-grade condition. The back does have some issues there, so I might push it a little further. But this one I did this was like January I picked this one up. But even with some of this, it's still a pretty decent, nice looking book. I mean, it's not super high grade. It ain't, perfect mid grade. But it's still a pretty good looking. And when you look online, this does go around $20 to $30. But for $6 that the shop was selling it for, yeah, that's pretty cool. And again, just look at that. It is obviously a pretty cool Mike Grell cover. This was during the period where he was at least doing some of the covers. And it's just great. So some Bronze Age Batman is usually one I like to find. I always, if I see any Bronze Age Batman, I'm snapping it up because they're not that easy for me. And especially in this type of shape, if it's at the reasonable price, I will pick up some Bronze Age Batman if I see it in the right condition for the right price. So there you have it. So it may not be a major title, but still, some of these are not that easy to find in this type of shape to begin with. Sure, you might, but it depends. So I always try to. I will definitely snap up. Speaking of Bronze Age Batman, this is an interesting one. Now, it is not from the Bronze Age, but it's supposed to be around the Bronze Age period, but it does feature a reprint. And eventually, now seeing how much the original is going for these days, I might find the original but it is one of the retroactive line of Batman. So this would have been what, 2010, 2011. This was in 2011, and I actually got this for $3, but it caught my eye because of this was during a line where they just, because it was like during Flashpoint, and they were about to reset the universe. However, they wanted to do a line where they brought back a lot of iconic, or at least some sort of classic writers for to write stories for their specific period. So for this one, this would have been the 1970s, and they brought back Lin Wen, who returned, and he brought with him Tom Mandrake for the artwork. And of course, Tom Mandrake did have a period on Batman, but it would have been during the 80s. And I do have one of the Tom Mandrake Batman issues. I showed you it, anyways. It was issue number 399. But since I think artist Jim Aparo and I forgot who else. Was it... God, there was another artist he had. But they were, they've all been passed on. I think at this point they are no longer alive. So he had to at least get the second best one he can think of that felt like classic Batman. So he went for Tom Mandrake, who had already built his name anyways, even doing like the Spectre. So here he wanted to connect the storyline to his first contribution to Batman, which would have been issue 303, I believe. Was it 303 or 304? Which would have been the first appearance of Lucius Fox, who at this point was still played by Morgan Freeman. And so he wanted to tie that story together, and so he created a sort of in continuity that would have been to that period and would have introduced the father of Lucius Fox. So this would have been the first appearance of his father, which would be that character right there. So it's fascinating. And I got this for $3. It's actually kind of going for around 10 to 15 now, I believe. I did see $10 on eBay, so it's starting to kind of creep up a little bit. But still, it's a cool one. You do find these, but these were lower print to begin with. I saw it was almost 14,000 copies, whatever, that was printed. It was a way lower number than what the normal comic was number, whatever, for 2011. So this got a very low printing, crazy enough. Still, I was like, for $3, I'll snap it, and it gives me a readable copy, whatever, of 303. Because I'm going to be on a lookout now. That's kind of gone down in price. That's really like now a $10 to $15 comic. It's crazy. Finally, let's get into a couple more Batmans. These were some early 80s detectives, and these I don't find all too much. And they're not in super perfect shape, but they're doable. Here we have is 505, more Rich Butler artwork. But this would have brought back... I forgot what they were calling them, but it's another wolf character, funny enough. But this would have been a character that was introduced in the early 70s through Dennis O'Neil. Was it Dennis O'Neil? I think it was another writer. I can't recall. But I know artist was Neil Adams. So this was a cool one. This was like the second and I think last appearance for this particular character. So obviously I think was Jerry Conway brought the character back. Again, not super great condition, but I had found it for like, what, $3 or $4 or whatever. It wasn't super bad at all. It was very reasonable for the price. So I was like, all right, I'll pick it up. And the last one I'm going to show you is number 515. This does have some issues, like some inking, whatever problems there, and some more spine ticks and stuff. But I forgot how much I paid for this one, but it wasn't super bad. Anyways, it was still pretty reasonable. So here we go. This one, I know some of these do have some first appearances. And again, Batgirl short story at the end. This, and I think I did see this one's also got a Batgirl short story. Speaking of Batgirl, this one they're selling for $2. And it's very crazy. But it is a fairly cheap, and it's a very low, close to more mid-grade than usual. But it, again, it's got quite a bit of spine ticks. but for $2, I'll snap it. But it's the Batgirl special from the late 80s, again with very cool Mike Mignola cover art. But it's a direct edition. But again, they were selling it for $2, and I was like, I'll pick it up. And this one is a very controversial because it ends up being tied to the Killing Joke. And obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the title that also really peeved off Alan Moore. But yeah, the Batgirl one-shot, which would be the last appearance of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl before she becomes Oracle due to the Killing Joke. This one is a cool find. This one was being sold for $5, and this is actually, it still sees some good pricing, even if even this is more of a mid-grade. It's still great to find it for like $5. That's not super overpriced. But I got it for free because this was the one I got along with the Ghost Rider book on the day of. They were doing like the one, buy one get one free. So I got this one for free, so I didn't even have to pay for this one. I'm talking about is Green Lantern 186. This is what is infamous for. The key is the first official was it John Stewart as the main Green Lantern. That's usually what is the key. Is it's not the first where he becomes a Green Lantern, but it's the first where he is now officially the main character of the series. Even though they were giving him some main character stories, whatever, for like testing the waters. But this is one where he actually becomes one of the main characters, and Hal Jordan is kind of the secondary Green Lantern because he quits. Previously, he had quit. But this is, and again, I found it for a good mid-grade, and this normally is like a $20 comic. $15, I think, now, but I've seen people try and overprice it still. I think during COVID, this got completely overpriced. But it's a cool title, great find, and so I can't really fault it. And since it was a buy one, get one free day, this was the one I ended up getting for free, and it was perfect because I didn't really feel like I overpaid or even underpaid. So it was a really, really good deal, so I got that one. And speaking of one, this was, I think, was $3. But the Green Lantern Special #1, this is a more of a pivot, interesting storyline, because this was actually with Christopher Priest, but he was actually using the fake synonym of James Owsley. Owsley, whatever, which is, I think because he was still doing work with Marvel Comics. So he didn't want to try and, I think Marvel, I can't recall, but I think it was Marvel that he was still under contract with. But here he is with DC doing, because he was doing a lot of the stories for Action Comics rather than the actual Green Lantern Corps or whatever. So this is the one where John Stewart is obviously being framed for something that Hal Jordan did, was like stealing a ring from Africa, and obviously John Stewart is framed for it, and here he is fighting against racism and so on. And it's definitely interesting, and it's a cool sort of Black History Month sort of title, but it's definitely one that is interesting. And again, Christopher Priest being a black comic book writer, it's very cool seeing him writing stuff that tackles this sort of like political sort of stuff and social commentary. And this is a very cool story. I did get to read it, so that's why it's in a newer bag and board. Finally, to end off, because this went up for a little long to begin with, but it is. And these were, they priced these ones very low for the last, because these were all like $7 or $7.50. But when they did the overhaul of all their comics, these got some different prices. And they were lower, and now I was able to actually get these. What I'm talking about is Blue Beetles issue #5, which is the first. This is now, for the question, normally it's one of the Crisis on Infinite Earths that's usually referred to as his first appearance. But this is his first main continuity comic. So it's his first man, of course, for being Blue Beetle. If you want to read up on the history, the question first appears in comic book, in a Blue Beetle title back in the 60s for Charlton. But here they did the same. Len Wein wanted to do the same thing, have them introduced for DC Comics in the Blue Beetle series for DC. So I was able to pick this one up for $5. That was a cool pickup. And here we have is keeping it number 6, which will be the second full appearance of the Question in DC at least DC storyline. So there we have it. And then finally, and that was like what, $4, and finally for $3, and it's actually a newsstand edition for number 7. So there you have it. And again, I picked these up because again, I do want to try and get some Question stuff, and I do want to kind of start off with him first appearing in these titles. So they've been contemplating on putting him in the DCEU, and it is very interesting. But so for me, I do kind of want to pick these up just in case. But still, I don't think any of these will, because I mean, Peacemaker first makes his actual main continuity story appearance in the Vigilante was at number 36, and so for the Question the same year would have been Blue Beetle number 5. So I wanted to get at least all the pre-solo series, Question appearances. So I got those. So that's it. That's all the stuff that I picked up. Some really cool ones, nonetheless. Some really cool ones. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed. This is Thrashhead over at the Comic Lounge saying I'll be out, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care, everybody.